Hello and welcome to the Wright Know Your Money podcast. I'm Ashley Smith.
And I'm Tom Richards.
On the Know Your Money podcast, we talk everything finance from financial planning tips to how what's going on in the world around you affects the money in your wallet and most importantly, your financial future.
If this podcast helps you, please like and subscribe so that we can help as many people as possible moving forwards. On this episode, we're going to be talking about pensions and what happens to your pension when you pass away. Should I invest in a pension? Is one of the most commonly questions we get asked here at Wright, along with how does it work and do I get tax relief for my pension? Ashley, can you explain to our listeners initially how pensions work and are they right for everyone?
Okay, yeah, so like all areas of finances, what's right for one person may not be right for another, which is why we always recommend that you speak with a professional to make sure any actions that you take are right for you. And whilst pensions may not be right for everybody, for most, they can be a very tax efficient way of saving for the future, and not just for retirement either. I won't cover pensions in their entirety because it's a vast subject and that would require an entire podcast all of its own, which is much longer than anyone would want to listen to. But we can discuss some of the basics of what a pension is, how it works, and by looking into some of those advantages and disadvantages that you've asked there. So as already mentioned, a pension can be a very tax efficient savings vehicle. So for example, did you know that for every £1 that you personally put into your pension, the government will also add 25p, which is equivalent to your basic rate tax. So your £1 automatically becomes £1.25. And this is usually reclaimed for you on your behalf by the pension provider, so you don't even need to do anything to get that. Gets even better than that. If you're a higher rate taxpayer, you can also claim an additional 20 pence per pound that you pay in tax relief via your tax returns. And if you're an additional rate taxpayer, you can also get a further 5 pence on that as well via your tax returns. It's probably worth mentioning here that sometimes or some employers do deduct pension contributions from your pay before you pay tax and before you pay national insurance. And because you haven't paid tax or national insurance on that money, when the money gets paid into the pension, you don't then get that top up, that tax relief on it, because you've already received it. You've paid the contribution in before the tax and before the national insurance has been paid.
There's some really great points there, and particularly about the fantastic tax advantages available when making pension contributions. Are there any restrictions on how much you can pay into a pension each year? Could you just explain that to our listeners?
Yeah, of course, really good question. So because the tax advantages are quite generous, there are limits, unfortunately, on how much you can save into the pension. So for most people, not all, but most, there's an annual limit of £40,000 or 100% of pensionable earnings. So if you earn less than the £40,000, let's say you earn $20,000, the amount you can pay in is capped at that $20,000. This is known as the annual allowance. It's worth again mentioning here that for those earning over £200,000 per year, you can actually start to see that allowance reduced, and it can be as little as £4,000 your allowance. So if you are earning over £200,000, it's always worth getting some advice on your contributions there. Those with earnings below £3,600, they can still make pension contributions as well, and even if you don't have any income at all. So if you have less than £3,600 or no income, you can physically pay £2,880 into your pension and you will still receive tax relief of £720 even though you haven't paid tax yourself. That means you would get £3,600 into your pension for £2,880 that you've paid in.
Wow, so some of our listeners will be business owners rather than employees. Is it possible for them to make contributions directly from the business? And are they advantageous to doing this? So is there a benefit? Yeah,
so in short, yes, a business owner can make a pension contribution to their own or actually to their employees' pensions as well. Pension contributions made by a company or by an employer can be in excess of your income. So going back to that annual allowance, if you've earned £20,000 that year, and you have another £20,000 or £30,000 in your business, you could put the full £30,000 into the pension. You still, however, do have that annual allowance of £40,000 when it comes to actually making a pension contribution. Pension contributions also made by an employer, including your own limited company, they don't get tax relief in the same way. So an employer pension contribution if they put £10,000 or you put £10,000 into your pension via the company, you don't then get an additional tax boost on top of that as you would from a personal contribution. A business does, however, get corporation tax relief on that contribution because it's classed as a business expense. So it can be a very tax efficient way of getting money out of the company and into your pension. Again, another thing to note here is that if you haven't made any pension contributions in the last 3 years, or you haven't used your full allowance in the last 3 years, it is possible for you to carry those allowances forward into the current tax year. Again, very, very important with that if you are going to do something like that, seek advice, make sure that you don't oversubscribe to your pensions and cause yourself a bit of a tax issue.
That's brilliant, thank you. So we've covered a lot there about the benefits of actually making a pension contribution. Can we quickly just talk about the tax advantages for money once it's gone into the pension?
Of course. So once the money's in the pension, we've already mentioned, yes, you get your tax relief going in, but also any growth within that pension is tax-free. And in fact, there won't be any tax liable on that pension until you actually decide to take your benefits. When you do decide to take your benefits, in most cases, you'll get up to 25% of the pension fund as a completely tax-free lump sum. It doesn't have to be taken as a lump sum, it can be sort of taken as part of your income. The remaining 75% is then used to provide you with an income and can make use of all tax allowances that you would have on your income there. So for example, if you have no other income when you do take your pension benefits, you still get your personal allowance, and if your pension income is below the personal allowance, potentially there is no tax to pay on the withdrawals, even though you had tax relief on the way in. There are also some tax advantages for pensions when it comes to death benefits. I won't cover that here. We've discussed that in a previous podcast, and we'll put the links to that at the bottom of the video. But if you wanted to delve into that, go along and have a listen.
That's brilliant. So as our listeners can see there's lots of great benefits to pensions, the tax efficiency of them on an initial and ongoing basis. Could you just explain some of the potential downsides of a pension, some things that listeners should consider before they choose to invest in a pension? Obviously seek professional advice before they do that.
Yeah, so the major downside for most people with a pension is that once the money's in there, you can't then access it until, under current legislation, you're 55, but that is increasing in 2028 up to 57. Although that is seen as a major downside, some of our clients actually see that as a positive, as it means they can't actually then be tempted to go in and access the funds, and it is set aside for retirement. Obviously, we get the tax relief going in, but as we've already said, potentially if your income when you're in retirement is taxable, you could see some tax on the way out as well. So that's another point worth bearing in mind. Obviously, with all these points, if you'd like to discuss whether a pension could be right for you or whether a non-pension investment would be more suited to your objectives, how much you should save, do you need to save? If you do, what sort of assets, what sort of risk, what sort of portfolio? If you'd like to explore this or any other question with myself or any of the chartered financial advisors here at Howard Wright, please contact us on 0345 688 4939, or alternatively go to the website howardwright.co.uk and fill in our inquiry form. It only takes 20 seconds to complete. Thank you very much for listening to the Howard Wright Know Your Money podcast. I've been Ashley Smith.
And I've been Tom Richards.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and share on your socials. And if you're listening to us on Apple Music or Spotify, please drop us a follow or leave a review.
It really helps other people find the podcast, enabling them to know their money better and build stronger financial futures moving forwards. Please visit the Howard Wright Knowledge Bank for loads more tips, articles, videos and podcasts just like this one, which we think you'll be really interested in. And most importantly, stay tuned for future episodes.
This recording contains information from sources believed to be reliable, but no guarantee, warranty or representation express or implied is given to its accuracy. Howard Wright does not undertake any obligation to update or revise any future statements. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future results. Investments can go down as well as up, and actual results could differ materially from those anticipated. This recording is for the information purposes only and has no regard to the specific investment objectives or financial situation of any individual. The information contained in this recording is not intended to constitute and should not be construed as investment or financial advice. Appropriate personalised